Canadian Ryan Wedding.
Ryan James Wedding.
Ryan Wedding.
The Ryan James Wedding.
Ryan Wedding, now in custody.
And just to tell you how bad of a guy Ryan Wedding is, he went from an Olympic snowboarder to the largest narco trafficker in modern times. He is the modern day El Chapo. He is the modern day Pablo Escobar.
This man once represented his country at the Olympics. Now, federal prosecutors say he became an alleged cartel boss, running a billion-dollar drug operation and ordering murders to protect it. Ryan Wedding's story is one of the most shocking falls in sports history. This play's worth a second look, so let's put it under review. Welcome back to Inside the Review Room, where we analyze every moment, story, and person shaping the world of sports. My name is Helena, and today we're talking about the once missing Olympian to an arrested alleged cartel boss, Ryan Wedding. Because what better way to get the Winter Olympics started than with a humble story. Ryan Wedding, whose alleged aliases include El Jefe, Giant, and Public Enemy, is a former Canadian Olympian whose name has resurfaced for all the wrong reasons. After a 17-month international manhunt, authorities arrested Wedding, bringing an end to more than a decade spent avoiding capture. Federal prosecutors allege that Wedding went from competing on the Olympic stage to running a sprawling drug trafficking network that moved over $1 billion worth of cocaine across the United States and Canada. According to court filings, the operation was also tied to multiple killings, including the murder of a key government witness. So who is Ryan Wedding? Ryan Wedding was once a legitimate Canadian Olympic athlete. Born into a family deeply rooted in snow sports, he transitioned from skiing to snowboarding as a teenager after his family moved to British Columbia. By 15, he was already on Canada's national snowboard team, and at just 20 years old, Wedding qualified for the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, competing in parallel giant slalom, one of the fastest and most dangerous events in the sport. He finished 24th and exited early, but the Olympic credential followed him long after his competitive career ended. That credential, Olympian, would later become an unlikely footnote in a far darker story. So what is he accused of? U.S. prosecutors allege Ryan Wedding led one of the largest and most violent cocaine trafficking organizations operating between Canada and the United States. According to indictments, his network worked with Colombian and Mexican cartels to move massive quantities of cocaine into Southern California, then distribute it across North America. Federal officials have publicly compared Wedding to El Chapo and Pablo Escobar, calling his organization both prolific and ruthless. Wedding was previously convicted in 2010 after attempting to purchase 24 kilograms of cocaine from an undercover U.S. agent. After serving time, authorities say he returned to trafficking and remained at large for nearly a decade. Prosecutors also allege Wedding ordered multiple killings tied to drug disputes, including targeted executions and a 2023 murder in Canada that investigators say was carried out due to mistaken identity. In 2023, the FBI flipped one of his closest associates, allowing investigators to intercept communications and map the organization's drug routes, ultimately leading to his arrest. So, how far did Wedding allegedly go to avoid capture? According to federal prosecutors, Wedding orchestrated a murder to prevent his extradition to the United States. In January, a man linked to the government's case against Wedding was shot and killed at a restaurant in Medellin, Colombia. Authorities allege the killing was ordered after Wedding learned the witness was central to a newly unsealed indictment. Prosecutors say Wedding placed a $5 million bounty on the witness, used intermediaries to track him, and coordinated an ambush that ended with the witness being executed in public. Court records allege that the hit was carried out by a hired assassin and paid for in cryptocurrency, a final attempt to silence testimony and collapse the case against him. Instead, investigators say it was one of the key events that sealed his fate. What makes the Ryan Wedding story even more unsettling is this. There were warnings, years before the headlines. About 6 years before Wedding became an international fugitive, a woman in Langley, British Columbia says she went to the RCMP with information on a website called Dirty News, which you can tell by the name had some very incriminating information on there. The guy who ran Dirty News was allegedly paid $10,000 to post a photo of an FBI informant, and as a result, the informant, a Canadian citizen, was then taken out in Colombia. Ryan Wedding's lawyer, who the FBI deemed as the cocaine lawyer, allegedly told Ryan Wedding to take out that federal witness, all reportedly on video. The Langley woman went to the RCMP with text message evidence she said connected Ryan Wedding and the owner of the Dirty News website. She reported this after receiving threats posted on a blog linking the death of the FBI informant in Colombia, a killing that U.S. authorities alleged was orchestrated by Wedding. At the time, she believed these weren't just online threats, but signs of an active criminal operation already in motion, and she brought that concern along with the messages directly to the RCMP. According to her account, when she brought this information forward, as at the point she was personally getting doxxed, the response was dismissive. She said officers claimed that they were aware of the website and took no meaningful action but simply telling her to stay off social media. No follow-up, no urgency, no escalation, just leaving her exposed to danger. Now, to be clear, the RCMP did acknowledge that Wedding had been named in earlier investigations in BC, however, it stalled. But in hindsight, that Langley report seems haunting, because what was brushed aside as nothing would later become a massive international case involving drug trafficking, organized crime, and murder allegations handled not by local police, but by US federal authorities. So how did the FBI finally catch him? For years, Wedding evaded arrest, likely living under the protection of the infamously dangerous Sinaloa cartel in Mexico, according to US law enforcement. Because as an RCMP commissioner said, when you have a $10 million reward on you and no one is coming forward, it just tells you where he is in the hierarchy of Mexican cartels. Fast forward to 2025, after being placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, authorities raised the reward for Ryan Wedding's capture to $15 million. Following the killing of the government witness, pressure rapidly closed in. Wedding ultimately turned himself in at the US Embassy in Mexico City. He was flown to Southern California and taken into federal custody, where his assets were immediately frozen. Wedding is now facing multiple federal charges, including drug trafficking, witness tampering, and conspiracy to commit murder. Several associates, including a lawyer, a crime blogger, and others linked to this case, have also been charged. Federal officials say the alleged murder meant to stop the case, instead ensured it would not go unanswered. Ryan Wedding's story isn't just about crime, it's about contrast. An Olympic credential is meant to represent discipline, sacrifice, and national pride. In Wedding's case, it became a footnote, overshadowed by allegations of power, violence, and control on a far larger stage. For most athletes, the Olympic moment defines a lifetime. For Wedding, it became the opening chapter of a story that moved in the opposite direction, away from structure, away from accountability, and ultimately toward destruction. His case forces an uncomfortable reality. Elite achievement doesn't guarantee integrity, and public status doesn't insulate anyone from consequence. This case is still unfolding, and the legal process will determine what comes next, but the arc is already clear. A rise built on talent, a fall shaped by choice, and a legacy no podium can erase. If you want more deep dives into moments, figures, and stories that change sports history on and off the field, make sure you're subscribed and click the little bell to be notified every time I post. And with that final whistle, we close out today's review. Thanks for stepping inside the review room, and I'll see you in the next one.